This is VRC Chief Nathaniel Bard, September 29, 11 p.m. I am acutely aware that my time's running out. And I hope and pray, by making this recording and bringing the truth to light, that I can restore some small shred of honor to my name.
Dr. Nathaniel Bard is one of the most important men that Carlos Oliveira will encounter during the events of the game Resident Evil 3. A scientist under the employ of the multinational pharmaceutical conglomerate Umbrella, Bard would be tasked by the company to develop a vaccine capable of fending off a virus that they themselves had created, known as the T-virus. Bard and his team would be successful in their task, but when an outbreak would threaten his employer's reputation, Umbrella would send in its U.B.C.S. forces to destroy any evidence of their involvement with T.
Umbrella's gone crazy. They're killing all the researchers. I am the only one who knows how to make the vaccine to stop the zombies.
The story of Nathaniel Bard as we know it begins with his position as senior researcher at the Spencer Memorial Hospital located in Raccoon City. From as far back as documentation on the Good Doctor goes, he was one of Umbrella's most trusted and senior scientists in the field of drug and vaccine research. His accomplishments making him a powerful man, not only within his employer's company, but also within the city of Raccoon as a whole. This prestige would put Bard in a position to rub elbows with some of the most prominent men in the city. Lavish parties held by those on Umbrella's payroll, fueling a corruption that permeated into the city's very foundation. It would be through these types of events that Bard would meet a man named Greg Tester, a sitting U.S. senator that was in the pocket of his employer. Tester and Bard would form a friendship of sorts, bonded through their debauchery. A friendship that would blossom into lucrative business deals for both parties. However, while Bard may have been astute at navigating the social circles of the city's elite, his ability to bond with his subordinates was much less impressive. Bard would constantly belittle the other staff at the hospital, his inflated ego due to his standing in the medical community leading him to be verbally abusive to anyone he saw as his inferior. This attitude would lead his fellow doctors and nurses to resent him, and they would begin compiling evidence of his behavior, abusive or otherwise, for a lawsuit against the famed doctor. Unfortunately, before this evidence would ever make it to light, Bard would find out about their plans, instructing his research assistant, a woman named Abbott, to steal and destroy the records of his malicious behavior.
Who do you think you're talking to? I'm goddamn Nathaniel Bard. I'm the best biologist you'll ever meet, you bedpan-changing waste of a nursing degree. Of course I am.
Bard would successfully avoid this lawsuit, but further issues within his field, as well as within the city, were beginning to surface. In Europe, a new Umbrella bioweapon, codenamed Nemesis, had been created using the unprecedented method of implementing a parasite as a means of controlling the BOW. This transition from viruses to parasites worried the accredited doctor. Vaccines could easily be created to keep viruses in check, but parasites, on the other hand, were a much more complex entity entirely. However, despite the future ramifications of this transition, something much more pressing had begun cropping up within the city. Cases of a mysterious infection had begun to plague Raccoon. Afflicted patients being taken to the Spencer Memorial Hospital only for their condition to baffle the staff. Bard, though, knew exactly what was happening. The T-virus had leaked, and with limited time before a full-scale outbreak, he would begin rushing to mass-produce a vaccine capable of quelling the oncoming storm. This process would take time, though, And as the hospital began to become overwhelmed, Bard knew more and more that it was time that he didn't have. He began to become acutely aware of the position that this leak had forced him into. He knew that Umbrella would attempt to destroy everything and everyone that could link them to the T-Virus's development. And so, in desperation, he would reach out to his corrupt senator friend, Greg Tester, in an attempt to flee the city before it was too late. But, unfortunately for Bard, it already was. The chaos of the city had reached a breaking point, the hospital quickly becoming overrun as the remaining staff locked themselves away from their former patients. Bard being held captive alone in his office as the dead filled the building's halls, making escape on foot an impossibility. In a final attempt to get away from the looming threat of Umbrella, Bard would reach out to the STARS unit of the RPD, only to be intercepted by the U.B.C.S, who had been sent to the building on what they'd thought was a rescue mission, but that Bard knew was a signal of his inevitable fate. Nathaniel Bard was a terrible person who played a large role in the corruption and ultimate destruction of Raccoon City. A powerful man being backed by the corporation that would drive this city into the ground. And as he sat alone in his office, the shuffling footsteps of monsters and corpses being his only companions, Bard would reflect on the selfishness of his life, on the legacy that he had left behind after a career as Umbrella's lackey. And so, in a final act of transparency, he would record a message about the truth behind Umbrella, a small penance for a wicked life he knew was coming to its inevitable end.
Bard. Tyrell, Bard's dead. He's been shot.
Shit, and the vaccine?